Hello, this is Vicki Laveau with Modern Jewelry Makers. It's just a hands-only video today so I can show this very cute tutorial. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If this is your first time at the channel, thank you for finding us. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust the light. I am very excited to share with you a brand new crystal palette mix for spring called Happy Spring, and to do this tutorial for this very cute bracelet that I made to go with her. So again, if you're not familiar, I love to make up different palettes. I sometimes do precious palettes with gemstones and crystals and freshwater pearls, but then other times I make mixes that are just crystals. And this one that I'm wearing here, this is one of our classic colors called Blue Violet. This is another one called Rose Opal. And they'll come in little, jars or vials like this that has about 300 little crystals in there that are a mix of Swarovski and Czech fire polish and Chinese in sizes 2, 3, and 4 millimeter in bicones and rounds and rondelles in a harmonious color mix that you can't just like string like the sample I have, but you can also, often I'll just use them as little like dangles for clasps or pendants or earrings, just to have that nice little mix that is all ready to go. But I wanted to make this fun one for spring. This is only the second time I've done kind of a multicolored mix, and she's just a lovely one of soft pinks and lilacs and seafoam and like buttercup and like a fern green and opals. I'm just thrilled with the little shades in there. So she's so pretty. And so because of that, I wanted to make up a new little project. This wrap bracelet that I've showed you here in the other palettes, anytime someone orders our palettes, whether it's the classic ones or the seasonal ones, you can add on a stringing kit for this. It's a wrap bracelet, or it can be one long strand that's, here's the smoke and mirrors one. So it can be just a long 34-inch necklace with a focal clasp, or it can do a wrap bracelet, and we call it professional finish because it has the French wire and crimps and the whole thing. But I wanted to do something a little different, and so I did this fun little multi-bracelet with the component. And so whether you were doing a project like this or this kit, or you just kind of tuned in to find the correct way or a proper way to finish off our elasticity pieces or elastic bracelets, then this is a great tutorial for you. Now, this is a stretchy cord and elastic, but it's made with Elasticity, which is a product by the Beadalon folks who make stringing wire, and it's made for beading. So this is in no way your like cloth stretchy cord that you have in your sewing kit or something. This is a transparent cord that's like a mixture of rubber and nylon that comes in 3 different thicknesses, and that was especially developed for beading and for jewelry making. So we are using the medium size, this 0.8. It comes thinner in a 0.5 or thicker in a 1.0. And the 0.8 is just a good, it's like in a medium size. It's got a nice, stretch to it, but it's also very secure. Where the thinner one, this 0.5, kind of see it there. It's thinner, so more beads will fit on it. However, because it's thinner, it's not as sturdy or as strong unless you double it, and which is a great way to use it. If you double this with a little beading wire needle, it's very secure, but then it won't fit through as many beads either. But if you use this on its own, because it will string nicely through like freshwater pearls and gemstones. However, again, as a single strand, it's just not very strong, right? Like I can break it in half. That's not the case with this size in the 0.8 is, excuse me, thick enough that our crystals will fit on there, but it's still thick enough that it's going to be very sturdy. And I'm going to show you the proper way to tie it off as well as we make this cute little bracelet. So we're going to make her in silver. If you order the palette mix and then you add on the kit, you can choose to have it either with a silver or gold. This is just one of the very few palettes that I've ever made that really looks gorgeous in either metal. You know, generally a color mix will tend to, you know, lean towards gold or silver being better color, but either of these look great. And so you'll have not only the elasticity, but also there's focal crystals, right? There's 3 of these like larger focal crystals on each strand, some metal spacers, head pins, a little metal component, and crimp covers. And I'll show you how we use all those. So it's meant to be 3 strands. I've made up 2 already for the silver one, so we will do the last one. In the kit, in the stringing kit, there's 2 yards or 6 feet of the elasticity. So that'll easily make, you know, more than 3 bracelets. So probably make closer to 5. You can cut them in 1 foot pieces. I like to cut it a little bit larger though. The length of the beads needs to be the length of your standard bracelet or your wrist. So I generally wear 7.5 inch bracelet. And so I'm going to string 7 inches or so of beads. But then I want to have at least 3 or 4 inches on the ends to help make the knot. So overall, I like to cut mine about 14 inches or so. That just gives me plenty of string on the end, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay. So we're going to take our jar and empty her out. And you could like choose to sort it a little bit if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that here, but you most definitely could. Okay. And when we string this, there's a pattern to it. And then I'm going to show you how to string the mixed beads. They're more random, but there is a method to the madness that I want to show you how to achieve overall balance when we're stringing mixed beads like this. But here's the focals, right? So there's 3 of those 6mm focals, like I mentioned. And between each of them, there's 3 sets of 5 crystals. So 5, a 2mm metal round, 5 more, 2mm metal round, 5 more, and then the metal round, the 6mm crystal, the metal round, and then 3 sets of 5 and repeats kind of thing. So we're going to do that 3 times. On the very end, I'm going to put with a little bit of a smaller crystal here. And you could also use like a bead stopper or something, but generally one of the smaller beads. We'll keep it on there so that we don't have to worry about it, you know, sliding off. I'm going to scoot that out of the way for me for now, so I've got a little more room. So I'm going to string on my first little section of 5 crystals. And here's the thing, when you're stringing mixed beads like this, really the only thing you need to kind of focus on is making sure that as you string on each bead, that it's different than the bead before it, or I try to keep all 5 of them different. So meaning that it's a different size, shape, or finish, or all of those things than the bead before it. So because many of the crystals in this palette are 4mm, they're a little bit larger so they can fit on this elasticity. And so many of them are 4 millimeters, but there's different shapes. There's rounds and there's rondelles and there's bicones. And then there's also different finishes, meaning like there's a transparent. And so now I could string on like an opal or a opaque, however you want to think of that next. But I still want to definitely make sure it's a different color. And I definitely want to make sure I throw in different sizes there so that it's not, you know, all the one 4 millimeter. And so there's a 3 millimeter there. And I like to use different shapes. So let's get a bicone in there. So then every 5, I'm gonna string our middle round. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and do one of the 6 millimeters now, even though I've only made 2 of those sections, because when we get to the other end, I'll make just a single one. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going and make more sets of 5. And that's, you know, really all you kind of need to focus on are those 5 beads each time. And I'm just trying to make sure they're always different than, you know, say the 5 before it or whatever. Okay. And I will try to string these as fast as I can. And, you know, if you were tuning in just to see the finishing, I'll put timestamps below. But I like to, you know, show this part because I've been teaching jewelry making and beading for over 30 years. So I'm very familiar with how anxious people can get when they overthink how things need to be strung. And that's why people really tend to enjoy a pattern or prefer a pattern sometimes, or most of the time even. But this is just a fun, kind of safe way to break out of that and try something a little different and fun. That one, oh, there it goes. I was going to say, that one doesn't want to fit. You can always trim like the end of the cord so that it's, you know, a little pointy or tapered. Okay. Just keep going. The seems like every time that I have a video that uses these palettes or a shared design that uses them, folks will ask if I'll teach how to actually make the color palette. And I have taught that before in my shop. And it's actually just a very, it's just not one of those things that can be taught, really. At least, you know, it's like when you've been doing any other art form, you know, for a long time or your whole life, basically. it's not possible to teach someone else to do that at the same, you know, level right away. It's like any other kind of mixing colors, like from an artist or even a hairstylist or an interior designer. My mom was a cake decorator that made, you know, really fancy, fabulous, you know, 9-tier, you know, wedding cakes with fountains and bridges and the whole ta-da. You know, but someone who'd never done them couldn't walk up and say, oh, I want to learn how to make that cake, right? Like it's not possible without having them spend, you know, a year making frosting first, you know, kind of thing. So while there's not really a way for me to teach this that would be successful for someone else, I can teach how to work with them, how to string with them, how to make fabulous jewelry out of them, and the easiest ways to design with them, and really great ways to use them for your jewelry. I've got a little earring I made to go with this as well that I'll share. I love these little palettes. Like I said, not just for stringing, you know, just like this, but like I was saying, also anytime I need a little cluster of beads, I really like adding like a little finishing cluster onto clasps or the bottom of an earring or on a pendant. I just think it's a nice way to finish them off. And so like the 4 classic collections, I call them, you know, come in like 4 pretty neutral mixes that are really wearable, like this, the purple one or the blue one I have on, and then this rose one, and then we have a champagne and cognac, and then a smoke and mirrors. So they're all really, I think, really wearable and fun. You know, and if you don't like, if you string something and you don't like it next to it, just take it off and put something else on. Sorry, the door's open. It's like the plane landing. Okay. Okay, that's 3 sections, and so we're gonna put our last focal bead section. So you know, I've shared before, when I mix these, I literally use a little like bucket like this and mix them until I love it. I'll add things, take them out, whatever. I was gonna say maybe it's kind of like soup or recipe where I guess you can't take stuff out of it. But I don't cook, so I'm not cook often, I should say. But it does seem like people that are really good cooks often cook from memory. And so if you ask them to repeat a, you know, recipe, they're not always sure. But when I make the little jars, like I said, they're normally, this one's a 250, this one's about 275 beads. But just because there are larger ones in this one, but most of the time they're definitely closer to 300. And make them, I just don't like scoop them up or anything into the jar. I count them out first and make sure that there's a good selection. Here's someone ordered 4, so like so I'll count them to make sure the count is right, but then I make sure there's a good balance of all the colors and all the shapes and everything so that you will, you know, love it and be able to use it. Okay, so there we go. So there's 2 of those sections and there's the last one. And I'm not gonna put a metal bead there. That's where our knot's gonna go. And then a crimp cover is gonna go there later. And that's not the original way that I taught this. If you have already purchased a kit, I normally just knotted them and didn't do any kind of cover because I didn't have the right size before. So you can just knot it and it's good to go. And this gold one, that's all I did is I've tried to put the knot between 2 4mm beads because the holes in these beads are not large enough to like put the knot inside, right? So there's the knot there, there's one right between those 2. So there's generally no way to hide it because it's transparent thread, you can't see it, you know, so it's fine. But I did find some 3mm covers and those will work well for this. They're too small for crimp tubes like this, but they work well. Okay, let me move this onto the gray. I think you can see this a little better. And then I need okay, so you need to remember to put it, if you're doing this project, through the ring first. There we go. Oh, and I was gonna, this is 7 or so inches. Right, there's a little bit more, so it's 7.5 or so, because it's about the size of my wrist. So like I said, you want the beads to be, you know, the general size you normally wear. And then the cord is gonna allow it to stretch a little bit more because it's gotta stretch over your hand, obviously. Okay, so we wanna make sure our beads are in the center, more or less, of our thread, so we have an extra 3 or 4 inches on both ends. This is 2 overhand knots. There's 1, there's 2, right? Now, I'm gonna gently pull this down until they kind of come together. So there's no slack, there we go. Now, I'm gonna pull on this. I've got my thumbs, my fingers about 1 inch or so on either side of the knot. I'm gonna do 1 long pull, and I'm gonna hold this for about 10 seconds. So no bouncing, right? Just 1 pull. It's the molecular structure of this material that helps it bond. You've just gotta give it a nice firm tug and let it do its thing. Then when you let go of it, you can look to make sure it's not coming apart or loose, but don't mess around with it. Don't play with it. Don't try it on. Leave it. Once we've looked at it, it looks pretty good. I might pull on it again. It's a little slippery under the lights here. But it's, like I said, 1 pull, no bouncing. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna use clear nail polish on the knot. And it's fine if that gets on the beads and stuff. We don't ever want to use a super glue. That's yucky, right? Super glue gets everywhere, destroys the crystals. You know, you want to be able to easily cut this apart one day if you need to or want to, and you won't have an issue with clear nail polish. Now, we need to let that sit for just a sec. Not just to dry, but everything to set and set up and be firm and secure. So let's do a couple other things while that's doing its thing. Let me show you the cute little earring I made. It's just chain. It's just a little inch of chain and the little crystals off head pins, and they're dang. It looks better vertically. It's hard to show on the camera, but it's just adorable. And you're gonna have plenty of beads left over. Each of these strands only uses 45 of the small crystals. And again, there's over 250 in the palette. And so, you know, it's going to have a lot left over. And so it's very easy to do a fun little earring like that. All I did is use a little piece of, you need a piece of cable chain. It's a repeating link. So it's the same link that repeats. An inch or so is fine. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but you'd want to hook it to an ear wire first so it's easier to hang on to. And then I hang this up so that I can see what's what, but you're just, you know, putting the crystals on head pins. I use ball head pins, but you can use whatever. And I did 3 off the bottom, and then 1 on the next and 2 on the next, and alternated them and just kept adding. There's about 10 crystals on each, but we're just doing basic loops that can easily be opened and moved around as you need to. But, you know, you just keep adding to it. And I think it's easier to hang it up and kind of see what it looks like, but very, very easy. I think that's a fun way to work with that. Now, the other thing let's do while that's setting is to make the little dangles. We'll have them ready to go. So there's the dangles off the component, and the kit has a couple head pins, and you just put whatever, you know, beads you want. The kit has 10 of this larger crystal, so 9 for the bracelets, and you can do 1 as a dangle. You can put another little bead on top. That one doesn't fit. Find a different one. But, and then you can find another little crystal. I already have the dangles here, but I can make another one. I'm very picky for someone that's already has them made. Okay, but all right, it's just on the head pin, and then it's just a basic loop. But the only thing is, because this component's kind of large, it's thick, so this needs to be a larger loop. So I would leave this a good 1/2 inch. Let me get a ruler. So a little bit larger, you know, than a typical basic loop, so that it can easily fit on that component. And then we're just using the middle of the round nose pliers. Right, and that way you've got a big enough loop to hook on there. So I will do that when we're at that point. Okay, let's finish her off. We're going to cut these tails. And you can leave just the littlest, you know, bit of it there. Then, and it's, like I said before, it's fine like that. We're good to go. But I have these teeny baby crimp covers that I think look really nice on them, because crimp covers are not like a bead tip or a collider. It's not sharp, right? It's got this big, like, open cavern, this big U shape, so it can cover a crimp, right? This is a larger one. So I normally use a 4mm to cover my crimp tubes, but this 3 is a baby size, but it's gonna work really well here. So here's my knot. So we're gonna use a crimping plier, top station. Always gonna place the crimp cover facing up with a little U facing up in the top station. And one thing you can do with these is even make them a little bit larger, so you can get it on easier. Like, we don't want it, you know, bend it up, but you can get in there and kind of make it a little bit bigger. I'll use my hands, I guess, just to make sure we get a good fit on there. Okay. So got this, right? Just holding it with the right kind of tension, I guess is the right word. Then I'm gonna maneuver this so my knot is inside the crimp cover, right? There she is. And I'm gonna close that around my knot. I'm gonna turn and squeeze again. And that's it. Look how pretty. So easy, right? You're not gonna put the crimp cover down and try to lay the knot in it, and you're never gonna get in it that way. It's gotta go in the plier first, right? And just hold this at a nice, you know, tension here so you're not squeezing it. Get that knot in there first, and then give this a gentle squeeze. Oh, look how pretty. Look, that's so nice. So it's just, you know, a smidge bigger than the other ones, but you can't even see it. I think it looks so pretty and nice. And again, it's not going to cut it because it's got that big U that just goes around it. There's no sharp, you know, pieces. Oh, let me bring the white back in. And I'm going to put my dangles on. And one more. I just think it's a fun way to kind of finish that off. And there we go. Look, it's so cute. So I just think it's adorable. And there's our little palette. But, you know, there she is in silver or gold. And there's still plenty left. You know, to make another one or make up something else. So I will leave like links down below. This was, you know, a special edition happy one for spring, so it might not, you know, be available that long, but I'll leave, you know, links to them in general. And the elasticity we have on our website, but you can also find it at like Michael's and other craft stores. But I'll leave links for all that stuff below as well. And if you're, again, new to the channel, I hope that you'll like and subscribe and come back for more jewelry making content. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next week. Sparkle brightly like the star that you are. Peace.